Have you ever manifested something screwed up in your life because of beliefs that you have inside yourself? Or even worse, have you been in a situation in your life where you're going to do something and you know full well you're going to screw it up, but you feel powerless to change yourself? Well, I've had the same experience. And it really drove me to work on myself in a lot of different ways. I did between 20 and so about 25 different methods to change what's going on in the way I'm thinking, the belief patterns that I have. And it worked up to a certain point, but it was every time I did anything, I was encountering a lot of resistance inside of myself when I tried to. The deeper I got in there, the more resistance that I was having to actually making these changes. Is this my body was resisting? There's a tension there that I just couldn't quite drop. No matter what process I used, or who it was coming from, how good they thought it was, it just wasn't really working that well. I mean, I got some results, but not great results. But then what happened one day was I was going through my life and working on myself in different ways. So I'm doing these disciplines to try to change my psyche, and they just really weren't working again. And so I started thinking about it. I was like, well, why is this not working? And it got me to thinking about the human energy system and the energetic core and the other structures of the human energy system and how I had used them in the past. And then I started mixing it up with some different shamanic disciplines and things that were more energetic. And at one point, there was a place where I started to have an understanding, where I started to feel like I was being guided to to look at this thing in a different way, through a different paradigm and a different way of approaching these patterns of these beliefs and these emotions. And when I did that, I was able to go extremely deep into my psyche. And it was much deeper than I had ever been able to go to before. And there was no resistance when I went and did that. And when I actually did this formula that I was shown and eventually refined it, after I did it, I felt such a sense of lightness and joy inside of myself. It was like I was a different person walking around. There was, even if I had wanted to go back to the old patterns, I couldn't, because it was like they had been erased. And I remember walking into this store and I was just smiling because I was so filled with joy and happiness. As I walked in, I was just smiling. Everybody's looking at me because I'm just walking around smiling, and it wasn't like I was trying to, it was just there. So it was really cool. And so I really worked with this for a while. And after a while, I really understood it at a much different level, what was actually going on when I did this particular formula that I had been shown. And what it does is it changes not only things that you might be trying to work on, but because of the way, and I'll get into this in a little bit, of the way that the beliefs in your psyche are stored. Sometimes when you make these very deep changes, it changes parts of you for the positive that you weren't even trying to work on. Suddenly you find yourself doing something in another area or part of your life that you hadn't really thought of before. And so I want to go into a little bit of the details about how all of this works in our psyche. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the story of a boy. Oh, this boy is 8 years old. Okay, and he is at Thanksgiving dinner with his family, and everybody's about to sit down and have this wonderful Thanksgiving meal. And because he's been a good boy, he's been given the honor of carrying the platter with the turkey on it to the table where everybody's sitting, waiting for the turkey and waiting to eat. And as he's walking across the floor, he stumbles and trips and falls. And the turkey goes on the floor, the platter breaks, the food is everywhere. His parents were very loving and tried to console him because they could see that he felt really bad. But what he did was he developed the belief in his psyche that I'm a screw up. And that made him afraid. And when you have fear, what happens is that you're going to manifest a bad result. So the result that he manifested was that he didn't try out for the soccer team because he had told himself that he was a screw up and he was afraid. Now he was afraid to go try out for the soccer team. And when he did that, he developed the belief that I have to hurt people to get what I want. And then he got very angry. Now, what I'm explaining here is how we develop these patterns which produce the emotions inside of ourselves. So we're starting down here with the turkey at Thanksgiving. The result of dropping the turkey on the floor, he evaluated with the belief that I'm a screw up, which creates an emotion. Every time you have a belief, it creates an emotion. In this case, it's fear. From there, he didn't try out for the soccer team, and he developed a belief that I have to hurt people to get what I want. And from there, he got angry. The next thing he did was he stole something. He developed a belief that people are out to get me. Now he starts to get depressed. This result, belief, emotion, every time you have an emotion, it's going to produce a result. You could say this is an outcome if you want to. But when you have an experience of life, it's really a result of something you did prior to that. So this result, initially they produced of dropping the turkey on the floor, which is an innocent mistake, he developed a belief that I'm a screw up, which produced the emotion of fear. From there, another result was he was afraid to try out for the soccer team. Then he developed another belief which produced anger. This result, belief, emotion that we starts to stack inside of ourselves. So I've given you 3 examples from him. This could go on for 50, 60, 120. It goes over time. See, when this child was 8 years old and he had this belief that I'm a screw up when he dropped the turkey, that's the belief that caused later on in life as he kept, because he never changed it, he developed much deeper behaviors. Some people call this neurotic behaviors. There's a lot of different terms to refer to all of this. But what it really is just you develop a negative belief and produce a negative emotion. And if you don't catch it and change it, you'll have another bad result, which produces another bad. Usually, unless you catch it, it's going to produce another belief and another emotion. Now, most of the people who would be watching something like this, I think, would be interested in working on themselves in different ways so that they're more positive, they're more effective at work, their beliefs are better, they're having a better time, they're able to laugh and smile more. But that's all in the present moment. When you're young, or when so many of the beliefs that we have originate, we don't have the ability to evaluate them. So let me explain to you a little bit about what I just said here. Between the ages of 0 and 7, we develop a good many of the beliefs that we have, which drive us through our entire lives. The National Institute of Health has said by the age of 5, a good bit of the beliefs that we have are already formed. By the age of 7, most of them are formed. But you have until the age of 11, 12, 13, different for everybody, when you develop the ability to analyze and to determine whether or not these beliefs are even true or not. Even if you're even mindful enough to do that, or if you're getting support for that in your family situation or whatever situation that you're in when you're growing up. So this result, belief, emotion, which builds over time unless you change it, becomes a good part of who we are. And this produces those negative results that I was talking about in the beginning when we screwed something up. Even though there's like a part of you that knows better, but you're running on this program. Now, a lot of people would call this subconscious or unconscious mind. And I challenge that way of looking at it for this reason. If you're thinking about it as the subconscious or unconscious, it's technically not really very accurate, because there's a part of you that knows what it is. There's a part of you that knows what it is. So actually, a more correct way of putting it is, I've forgotten what this belief is, or I'm unable to get to it. But you need to acknowledge that these beliefs that you have, which produce these negative behaviors, whether it could be the loss of a marriage, it could be the loss of your job, your health, things which really produce a lot of really pain and suffering for all of us if we have those things running the show. And so looking at it through a little bit different paradigm to allow you to get to some of these deeper beliefs is a big part of what I teach in my Repower Your Psyche program. Now, what you need to realize is that if this person here is 8, this boy, when he spills the turkey and develops the belief, I'm a screw up, and then he gets afraid, that happens when he's 8. Now, if you fast forward 20 years to 2023, he's 28 years old now, and these beliefs are still in there, and they're causing this guy to do stupid things, even though he's an intelligent person. He's made great grades in school. He just gets into a lot of trouble. He doesn't seem to be able to hold down a job. He's got self-esteem issues. Where did it all start? It started down here. So what we need to do is to realize that over time, this belief, which was once just a fleeting thought in this kid's mind, which he didn't catch in that moment, produced a negative emotion. And like I said before, when you have negative emotions, you're going to produce a negative result. It's just the way it is. I mean, everybody's walked around angry about something and then done something stupid, or felt afraid and known better than to get afraid, but you still did it, or whatever it was. You let yourself get depressed about something that made no sense. Whatever it is, we all know that when you have these negative emotions, first of all, you're going to feel bad, which makes you not want to do anything. But second of all, you're going to produce a bad result. Unless you're in the moment where you're changing these things, they're going to go deep into your psyche. So what happens is this, and this is an important part of why when people try to go in and work on themselves from the present moment, you're in your present moment looking back into your psyche and trying to see what's in there that's causing you your problems. And what you can see is the stuff that's on the top of this pie, this stack of things. This result, once again, spills the turkey, I'm a screw up, fear. Okay, another bad result here, another bad belief, another emotions, and they keep going like this. Let's say there's 98 of these deep. Guy's low self-esteem. But what you need to realize is that what happens is when you get angry and you get afraid, your brain, which is designed to help you to survive and not thrive, goes into a state of fight, flight, or freeze. The sympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system is kicked on excessively, which will keep you alive. It will get you away from the famous saber-toothed tiger, or an earthquake, or something in a war. It'll help you to do that because you'll have extra energy to do something. You'll deplete yourself over time, but you'll still survive. And the brain is really running on more or less a very simple program of eat, reproduce, and breathe at the most basic level. Those are the most basic functions. Eat, reproduce, and thrive, pass on the gene pool. That's it. It's pretty primitive, deep inside of your brain. So what happens is when you have these situations where you get into a situation where, like, you spill the turkey and you develop a belief that I'm a screw up and you get afraid, you have the exact same, I want you to hear this, you have the exact same physiological change inside yourself as though there was a saber-toothed tiger running at you, looking very much like it wants to kill and eat you. There's no difference. Your body can't tell the difference. And so when you start to do this, your brain takes that memory of that experience of what happened there, and it shunts it off into some little dark corner, some little remote part of your psyche. It could be in your physical body, but it could be in the energy system around the body, because its priority is to keep you alive so you can eat, reproduce, and breathe. Pass on the gene pool. Not thrive, have an amazing life where you get up and have your green drink and you breathe and you meditate and say mantras and things. That's not what it's designed for. It's designed to keep you alive and to pass on the gene pool. That's it. The most basic level. But that's where you go when you start getting angry and afraid. You get into that state, and you'll stay there until you do something to change that pattern, that way of thinking. Now, most of us, I would imagine, people who are going to watch something like this, are watching what we're thinking most of the time now. We're old, most people here watching this are older. You're not 8. I mean, there may be a few 8-year-olds watching this, but probably a good number of you are adults. You're doing things, you're watching what you're thinking, and you're trying to be positive and have positive emotions. If you get afraid or something, you try to face your fear. You're doing that now, but when a lot of these things were formed, whenever it was, it could be very deep in there. It could be 2 years old, 3, somewhere in there. Very, very deep, deep, deep in your psyche. When those things are formed, it could have been a very long time ago. Some of you watching this could be 40, 50, 60 years old, 70, whatever. These things have gone on your whole life. Some of you have been aware of some of the patterns you have for decades. And despite whatever you've tried, you still are running on some of those programs. And so what you want to think about, to help you understand this, let's just look at the number of thoughts that you have per day. There's a lot of variance in the way people are looking at this, but generally speaking, most people would say about 6,000 thoughts a day. 6,000. I've heard as many as 60,000. But if you do the math, if you're thinking 4 thoughts per minute, that's probably more in line with the way most people are. Sometimes your thoughts are really going through your head very quickly. Sometimes not so much. If you're outside and you're enjoying a beautiful day, you may be you may be thinking thoughts much slower, and it varies for everybody. It depends on what you're doing, how you're focusing, what you're eating, a whole lot of factors. If you drink coffee or whatever, that's going to speed it up. And there's a lot of different factors to it. But if you have 6,000 thoughts per day, that's 180,000 thoughts in a 30-day period. In a year, that's 2.16 million thoughts. So if this guy here, you start off as 8, Now he's 28. He's had 20 years. 20 times 2.16 million is 43 million thoughts plus by the time he's 28. Do you really think? Now think about this. Have you ever been going through your day when thoughts are really going through your head pretty quickly? And you're doing something and you might accidentally knock something over on your desk, for instance. And in that moment, because you're so busy and so focused doing something, you'll have a quick thought. It goes through there very quickly. And then you get anger. Okay? That thought there that I just referred to is what causes the start of this whole thing, which eventually, by the time you're 28, produces low self-esteem, can't hold down a job, health problems, whatever it is. Because it wasn't caught when it was originally started. Even as adults, we need to deal with the same paradigm. It's the same thing every single day. But back in here, you weren't as aware of changing these things. You might not have been in a supportive environment. So the adult who just knocked something over on the desk, and that flash of anger, he noticed that and he tries to catch himself, but he's so busy he doesn't have time to change the way he's thinking, he thinks. So now he's angry, and how long does that go for? 2 hours, 3 hours? He'll have another thought, he'll have another result, another belief, and another emotion. A few minutes later, 20 minutes later, whatever it is, and then he'll have another result. He's getting more and more negative. Everybody in the office is not doing what they're supposed to do. Develops a belief that, I'm not good at this, but I can put him into line, and now he's yelling and screaming at his employees or whatever it is. And so that developed over time. This developed, but back here when he was 8, now it's 28, 43 million thoughts ago. You see that thought which just flashes through your psyche. That's what causes it. So what your worst nightmare right now, some of the things that are really causing you to do dumb things in your life, that have screwed up your life, screwed up your health, made you feel bad about yourself, might give you low self-esteem, put you in debt, whatever it is, all they were a fleeting thought in your head at one point that you just didn't catch. Now it's your worst nightmare. How does that make you feel? That's the way it is for all of us. Me too, of course. So the question is, it's like, okay, how do we get back down in here? Well, let's go back to the brain for a second. See, the brain, which shunted off this memory because it went into this fight, flight, or freeze, does the same thing with the rest of all of these beliefs. And that's why when you go in and to try to change yourself sometimes, it's so difficult to do so. Because you hit a lot of resistance inside of yourself. And part of that is the brain doesn't want to let you get back down into these beliefs. Because it thinks it's under the threat of death. And it wants you to eat, reproduce, and pass on the gene pool. Breathe. That's it. Not designed to help you to thrive. So you can see that these things which develop over time could really get to be a big challenge. But as you're here, this belief that I'm a screw up, that over time becomes your personality. All of these beliefs, and you have many of these inside of your psyche that you've developed over the years. The challenge then is to be able to go in and get to that to the belief so you can change your personality, and you're not thinking the same thoughts over and over again, which are going to produce the same results in your life, and you can start to envision and put out to the world something positive, so that you're going to create a better life. But when you go to put that picture out there of what you want to create, you're creating this great thought of this, great health you're going to be in and how good you're going to feel and all these things. But your personality is back here with I'm a screw up. There's going to be a conflict there. And so in order to make the kinds of changes so that we become better people and have better stuff and better health and a better car and more financial affluence and all of these things that we want, a better relationship, you have to become a different person. By becoming a different person, you will have changed your personality. Now, sometimes people will go through life, and what will happen, unfortunately, is they'll be so determined to change themselves. They just keep pushing it because they know they got to get better. But what will happen is, because the way this whole thing is set up in your psyche, with these result, belief, emotions, and the way these memories are shunted off into a remote portion of your psyche, and how the brain doesn't want to let you get in there, is that you will push yourself to the point where you actually get a change. But it's so painful. You can go through such a deep pain inside of yourself, whatever is a relationship breakup or financial loss or whatever, you're just in such a deep state of emotions coming and you're feeling negative, but you just keep trying to change and become a better person. But it's so painful and it doesn't work very well. Most people don't even want to go back and do that. I won't. But this is the way a lot of people will do it, because they don't know another way to get into it. Now, some of the thoughts you have are bigger thoughts, some are smaller thoughts, some are stronger, some are weaker. But we need to look at how to change things at a deeper level. Because when you go in and change down here, this belief that I'm a screw up, all of these beliefs, this belief, this emotion, result, belief, emotion, above that just go away. Because you got deep enough in there. But you're not going to be able to remember here in 2023 what happened when you were 8 years old. You're 28 now. You're looking back when you were 8 years old 20 years ago, 43.2 million thoughts ago. You really going to remember that? I mean, what did you have for breakfast yesterday? Do you remember? What did you do at 2 o'clock last Tuesday? You remember that? I mean, you're not going to remember it. You got other things to think about. And so what I do with this Repower Your Psyche is I take you to that place inside of yourself where you can get to these beliefs and you can remember them. And I teach you how to change them once you get in there. Albert Einstein once said, we cannot solve our problems at the same level with using the same thinking that we used when we created them. So to try to go back down through it from the present day here in 2023 to something that happened when I was 8 years old, if we're trying to go back down through the thoughts and track each one back to each cause and effect that we've created in our life, it's not going to work. You got to come at it with a different paradigm. And so I bring in the use of the energy system, because through the energy system, we can access the power, or some of the powers that we have. We've got a lot of powers we don't give ourselves credit for. We can access some of the powers that we have inherently, innately, and put them to constructive use to change some of these things which cause so much pain inside of ourselves. And another thing that Albert Einstein said is sometimes the way to solve the problem is to stop participating in the problem. And sometimes the problem is we're thinking that it's the subconscious, it's the unconscious, and it's just the way I am, or I can't change it. Bullshit. I can show you how to change it. You got to think about it. At least what I want you to do as you're watching this, I want you to consider the possibility that you can change these deep beliefs which have caused you so much pain and grief in your life. And quite frankly, the way I show you how to do it, it's easy, fun, and relaxing. It's actually pretty chill. It's not stressful, and you're not going to encounter all of this resistance. You're not going to be burnt out afterwards. You'll feel more energized because we're coming at it through a completely different paradigm. So what I teach you in this course then is I show you where these beliefs are at inside of yourself. I take you to the place which knows where they're at, and you can see them for what they really are. And then when you get there, I also show you how to focus the way you're thinking and approaching this, the mindset, if you will, that allows you to make this change. And it's not normal. It's not the way most people think. There's a combination of things that I bring together that teaches you something that is, I've never heard of it before I did this. And like I said, I think I'm pretty smart, but I came up with part of this, but part of this was shown to me. And I believe that it was shown to me so I can teach other people how to make these changes, because, we need these kinds of changes in ourselves. We need some game changers at this point of where we're at in human history. We've got some issues here that are not going to get solved the way we're going about it right now. Albert Einstein, we cannot solve problems with using the same thinking we had when we created them. Do we really believe that we're going to continue to just pour unlimited amounts of carbon dioxide from our automobiles and factories and all that into the environment, and there's not going to be a problem? That's crazy. And we're all doing it. I do it too. I drive. I'm guilty. Hopefully I'll get to plant some more trees this year. But, it's going to take some game-changing type of stuff. And this is a game changer the way I'm showing you, because it's probably, I've never seen anybody do anything like this. And it really works. So what I do in this course is I teach you. See, there's a preparation that I put you through in order to do this. You have to be prepared, and you have to be very present and intentional when you show up to do this. If you're distracted about this, distracted about that, it's not going to work. You have to be present. You have to be very intentional. You have to be right there. And I do it through a number of different methods. One is to help your brain to come out of this fight, flight, or freeze, because when you're in this fight, flight, or freeze, you're just a mess. We all are. And it's just the way we're designed. It's nothing personal. It doesn't mean we're stupid. It just means that we have the capacity to survive dangerous situations, which have been honed in the human genome over millions of years. That's all it means. But because you have these hemispheres of your brain where you can think now, which are fairly new to the brain, you can make those changes. And think positively, and catch yourself when you're starting to have those negative thoughts, when you knock someone over on the desk, and maybe just take a deep breath. Oh, it's not that big of a deal. Instead of saying, my employees are screwed up. This is Sam's fault. Something like that. And then getting angry at Sam. Whatever it is that people do. Whatever this guy did. It's the way we do. It's the way we do things. If we're getting negative. Now, we want to, while we're doing this work, I teach different kinds of breathing, which allows you to focus in a different way. Now, once again, I'm bringing in this paradigm of the human energy system, and there's some shamanic disciplines as well, because first of all, most people don't know much about the human energy system, and it's something I've been working on for almost 40 years now, and there's a lot to it. Going into the energy system and working with the energy system is a different kind of an education that gives you a different perspective. Remember, we want to look at it from a different perspective, a different paradigm. Come at it in a way that works. We, as long as it's for the greater good, we don't really care how we get there, We're going to do the work. So that's another thing that I teach, is that all these skills are adding up as we're going through this, because you have to be prepared physically, you have to be prepared energetically, you have to be prepared with a level of understanding about what's actually happening. I teach you how to change these negative emotions to positive beliefs. These negative beliefs to positive beliefs. There's a very specific way to go about doing this that's very effective. And you're not going to hit that same resistance inside. See, anytime we hit that resistance inside of ourselves, that's when we're going about it. That's the indicator that you want to pay attention to. If you're hitting a lot of resistance inside yourself, it means that there's something you're not getting. Because really, there is an easier way to do all of this. Because if you're always hitting all this resistance inside yourself, you always have to work so hard to make a change, and so hard to do this, and so hard to do that, you're going to be burnt out. You do that in real life, you're going to be, you'll either, if you don't die an early death, you're going to have a very unfulfilling life. You've got to find easier ways to do things. And in the way I teach and Repower Your Psyche, it's relaxing, rejuvenating, and pretty fun. It's lighthearted. There's a different paradigm here that I want to bring into play. Give you the power. Now, what also happens in this class is that I teach you how to do that. I take you through the process, but then I teach you the formula that I was shown and that I've refined, so that you can go and do this work on yourself afterwards. You're going to go through your life after the class, and you're going to encounter situations in your life where you're going to have to step up your game emotionally, but you'll start to see more and more of your patterns. You get into bigger and bigger situations in your life, and what you see is you just see deeper into yourself. You'll see more patterns that you have that are negative, that you'll need to change to step up, to be a bigger, better person, to handle bigger and better situations, so you can be better for your family, better for yourself, better for humanity, better for the environment, whatever you're focused on. So please join me for Repower Your Psyche. I'm very excited to share this with you. I think you're going to be delighted at the results that you're going to get when you apply this, and surprised too at just how deep really inside of yourself that you can get, and the very cool sensation of walking around as a different person that's positive after struggling for so long. So hit that link down below. It'll take you to the page where you can sign up for it. And I look forward to seeing you in the class, and I look forward to talking to each and every single one of you.